Hello, design. Let me put my face somewhere. All right, so today I wanted to talk to you about visual hierarchy and controlling how your design communicates with others. So you guys will have all the power to learn how you can manipulate people, basically, is what it comes down to. Okay, so I wanted to talk about your design, your job as a designer. Okay, so we talked about this before, is what is graphic design, and a lot of people just thought it was art on the computer. But remember that we talked about graphic design equals visual communication, and that's your job. Okay, so one of your jobs as a communicator is to organize and prioritize certain items to convey valuable information about their importance. Okay, so let's take a look at this GIF. All right, and let's pretend that we are this person walking through Japan. Now, I specifically picked Japan because we can't understand their language. Maybe you can, and maybe I'm wrong. I'm assuming wrong that you are fluent in speaking and reading. So I'm walking down the street. What do you guys see first? Okay, just take a look. What am I looking at? All right, I don't know about you, but when I first saw this GIF, the first thing that I saw was this guy, okay? He was really large, right? And my eyes did look to the text, okay? Other things that really stood out to me when I was walking down the street was this yellow sign, just because it was very bright. The repetition of these faces also caught my interest. And it wasn't until I looked at this GIF for quite some time that I'm like, wow, I'm walking right back by a Starbucks and I didn't even see it. That's like crazy. So I want you to think about that is, you as a graphic designer have to know like what you're designing, where it's going to go, and how do you stand out in the crowd. So it's like, how do you attract someone's attention, keep it, and then navigate them through that work? Okay, so what we call this is visual hierarchy. And basically, that is a visual technique that can help the viewer navigate your work. All right, and I just wanted to bring up um, some hierarchy. Okay, so have you, usually in class I ask people, have you heard the word hierarchy before? And they'll say, yeah, I've heard about like, I learned about hierarchy by medieval standards, medieval hierarchy, and who was the most important, the Pope, and then the monarch, the king or queen, the nobles, the lords, there was like knights and all these other things, and then the serfs. And, this was the most powerful person, and there was definitely a hierarchy of order of who was most important, okay? You might have also heard of family hierarchy, who's most important, and it's very different depending on what culture. Japanese culture, like eldest sister is more important than, like it's crazy. It's like your gender, your age, um, all different kinds of things can determine who's the most powerful, who is the head, who's directing, who's doing all the orders in the family. All right. And then you might have also heard of, maybe you took psychology, and you heard about the hierarchy of needs. Like, first I need to have self-actualization and esteem and love and feel safe. And there's that kind of hierarchy. So you probably already understand what hierarchy is, that there's something more important, and then there's other things that are less important, and there's an order. And that's exactly what visual communication is as well. Okay, visual hierarchy. So when we're looking at text, okay, you can control how people actually look at stuff. So, just within text, I made this, bolder, darker. So I read it first. Then I'll read this because it's second, but it's not as dark. So its value isn't as dark. Then this, it's thinner and smaller. So, I'd probably not, I'd probably like skim over that. I probably won't read this, except if, we see the phrase is bolded and bigger again, and then maybe I'll like jump around, okay? So this is actually called an anomaly, and we'll actually talk about, doing things odd to make them stand out, purposely making things break out from the mold to make it, pop. So you control the message. And the idea is to attract the viewer, okay, like we are walking down the street and you want to get their attention. But then remember, your main job is to communicate, okay? And so through design choices, you'll emphasize and highlight some things, okay? Then you'll put other items that are related together, and you should establish an eye pattern, okay? So you kind of like tell them where to look first and then how to move through and communicate the message. Again, that's the most important part. So let's look at two pieces of design. The one on the left, we don't even know what this is, right? There's no text. All we see is gray and gray boxes, but we can clearly see that there's no hierarchy here. And this is like something that you probably see in your textbooks and you're like, I have no desire to read this, okay? Versus, whoa, like here on the right, we have different sizes, we have different values, we have different shapes. There's different spaces, it's organized differently, and already it's more attractive and inviting than looking at something that has no hierarchy. Okay, so how do we create hierarchy? Don't forget crap. Okay, remember that I want your design to look like crap. And what does that mean? Is that one, you can create contrast. By creating contrast, you can start controlling how people view the work. So when there's an extreme difference, then that's going to catch their eye comparatively to other things. Okay. Repetition, when there is things that repeat, then you look for that, and then it also helps create unity as well. We have alignment, and that helps create groups and kind of distinctions of areas. So objects either lining up to an edge or maybe the center of things help create organization on a page. And you have to think about proximity. So that's the nearness in space. Okay, so these look like they actually belong together because they have the same amount of negative space between them. And then also these look like distinct groups because of the negative space. And then even this looks like it's grouped together because of size, but also proximity. Okay, so I wanted to watch this video that's very good. And it's actually just going to mention how crap is used to create visual hierarchy in layout.
Layout and composition. In a way, they're the foundation of design. They give your work structure and make it easier to navigate, from the margins on the sides to the content in between. Of course, it's not just about working with text. Composition matters in other mediums too, like graphic design, web design, and much more. Without a well-composed layout, your work would basically fall apart. The key to mastering layout and composition is to think like a designer. Luckily, it's easier than it sounds. There are 5 basic principles that can help you transform your work and sharpen your eye for design. Let's start at the top and work our way down. Proximity is all about using visual space to show relationships in your content. In practice, it's pretty simple. All you have to do is make sure related items are grouped together. For example, blocks of text or elements in a graphic. Groups that are not related to each other should be separated to visually emphasize their lack of a relationship. All in all, this makes your work easier to understand at a glance, whether it's purely text or something more visual. White space is an important part of every composition. Now, this doesn't mean literal white space. It just means negative space, like the spaces between your content, between lines, and even the outer margins. There's no one way to use white space correctly, but it's good to understand its purpose. White space helps you define and separate different sections. It gives your content room to breathe. If your work ever starts to feel cluttered or uncomfortable, a little white space might be just what the doctor ordered. Alignment is something you deal with all the time, even if you don't realize it. Whenever you type an email or create a document, the text is aligned automatically. When aligning objects by yourself, for instance, images or separate text boxes, getting it right can be tricky. The most important thing is to be consistent. Let's take a look at what that means. It might help to imagine your content arranged inside of a grid. Notice how there's an invisible line centering each image to the text? Each grouping is also evenly spaced and aligned, with equal-sized margins. It's that attention to detail that makes the composition easier to navigate. Without consistent alignment, your work could start to feel disorganized. Contrast simply means that one item is different from another. In layout and composition, contrast can help you do many things. For example, catch the reader's eye, create emphasis, or call attention to something important. There are lots of strategies for creating contrast. You can use color, adjust the size, shape, or visual weight of an object, or use contrasting styles of text. Contrast is also closely tied to hierarchy, a visual technique that can help the viewer navigate your work. In other words, it shows them where to begin and where to go next, using different levels of emphasis. Establishing hierarchy is simple. Just decide which elements you want the reader to notice first, then make them stand out. High-level or important items are usually larger, bolder, or more eye-catching in some way. Repetition is a reminder that every project should have a consistent look and feel. That means finding ways to reinforce your design by repeating or echoing certain elements. For instance, if you have a specific color palette, look for ways to carry it through. If you've chosen a special header style, use it every time. It's not just for aesthetic reasons. Being consistent can also make your work easier to read. When the viewer knows what to expect, they can relax and focus on the content. In many ways, layout and composition are the unsung heroes of design. It's easy to overlook their role, but they're part of everything you do. A nudge here, some extra white space there, and voila! With a little attention to detail, you can create beautiful, professional-looking compositions. Thanks for joining us for the
Awesome. So wasn't that great? It was just a great video about basically crap. It was just in a different order. And then they also threw in white space. Okay, so I've talked about negative space before. It's the same thing. Some people call it white space or negative space. It's empty. It just means it doesn't necessarily need to be white. There's nothing there. And I think a lot of beginners just forget that you really need to have it. But she talked about the importance of having it for alignment. And also there's like that resting place for the eyes. And again, you need to have space so that you can put things into group. Okay. Now, another way that you can control what is emphasized or what, more important than other things is thinking about the visual weight of the objects on the page. Remember, the two things you have are text or imagery. So you can create hierarchy in design by adjusting the visual weights of those elements. More visual weight is seen as more important, less visual weight is seen as less important, okay? So if something is larger in size and scale, it's going to feel heavier and take up more space on the page, therefore making it look more important, okay? We also have color. All right, so some colors appear heavier than others. Think about black, red versus something like, yellow or pale blue. All right, those we already know that like some colors recede, but we also know that some of them, are heavier and take up more space. And we also know we can understand bright versus dull. So what's going to pop out versus some other colors. Okay. Think about density. So density means packing more objects into one space is making it more dense. All right. And things that are jam-packed into one space are going to be heavier than other things that have more space between them. So we can see that this looks heavier than the rest of the items that are spaced out. Okay. Other considerations when thinking about hierarchy is doing something unexpected so that it gets somebody's attention. For example, what if you have a very boxy kind of design and you use a different shape, within there, and then that thing's going to pop out comparatively to other things. Okay. Also, what about direction? Okay, what if text was all going one way and then all of a sudden you decided to break that grid and change the direction of the text? That text is now going to become more important, okay? So, can you name some of the elements and principles used to make up hierarchy here? So I was wishing we were going to do this in class, but what does that look like? So you can probably see, oh, there's like this mixture, right? And that's the thing, is that you have all these devices, these tools, density, color, white space, shape, direction. You could do all those things, all right, but you still have to organize it in a way so that we know what to look at first and then next and help navigate through the work, okay? So that's where eye pattern comes in. And that means that you need to control how someone moves through your piece. So I'm going to show you this piece of graphic design, and they did a lot of scientific tests on this. And some people actually who have really large businesses go to scientists and they say, I want you to track this piece of graphic design, and we want to see what people are looking at first, how long they're looking at it, the direction of how they're looking. So this is scientifically actually studied, and then marketing people bring this up to designers and corporations and saying, to show how effective their design is based on their eye movement through the work. Okay, so looking at this piece, they decided to use this to track eye pattern. So notice that the red area is that person is actually spending a lot more time looking at that area versus the darkest green, not so much time. Okay, and then you can see that there's like white where they didn't even look at all. Okay, so yeah, but do you notice that sometimes they do? Like that's like, right? So we talked about resting space for the eye. So what did everybody look at? First they look at the baby, all right, and it's got the baby's face of all things, and a little bit of time on their belly. I don't know, right? And then what are they doing? They're looking at the big text and they're reading, and they did take a glance at the diapers and the word baby. Okay, so we can track how much time they've actually spent on certain things. Okay, this next slide I'm going to show you is they actually put it to the test. Okay, so this was a website for truckers. All right, and so this is what the design actually looked like, and this is how they tracked it. So any lines, you can see that that's the line that tracked actually like where their vision moved around on the page. So the red hotspot, people looked at this thing that said no fees first, okay? And then we can see where the green areas where they spent a little bit more time with the yellow. All right, so what were they looking at? The number, a little bit right here, a little bit where this guy like bending over, really? We're spending more time there. And then this logo right here. So this is how it was moving around. And you're like, what? That's not what people want, like that's not what you wanted to like pay attention to, right? Like you wanted someone to know what this is, what they need to do next, and what they can do, right? Like the who, what, where, when, how. Okay, so they actually after going through this marketing and realizing that people are looking all over the place. Okay, they redesigned it. Notice they made the type really, really large and white. They got rid of a lot of colors. They got rid of all those logos. They got rid of that no fees, because remember, like different colors have different weight. So we can see that the red really attracted people. So notice like the colors overall now are like muted blues and grays. Okay, so those are not meant to attract attention. And then they put the number and telling them the next steps, like in this yellow bar, and organizing it all inside that yellow bar, right? To like create a space and organize it in. And so now we can see, what are people looking at? Oh, they're looking at this yellow button first, and it's giving them what to do and how to call next. And what are they looking at? Oh, I'm going to be a trucker, and this is the name, towing and wrecking service. Okay, so this is where I need to go. to do these things. So it makes so much more sense now, right? So that's kind of this idea of, you control what people look at, and you do want to create this eye pattern. There's actually like consistent ones where like they say that most people read from left to right, so they'll start from the upper left-hand corner. That's very common, and then kind of make a Z pattern. There's also some that like make more of an F pattern, and there's actually a lot of different patterns you can find online. Okay, we're gonna watch another movie, and this is where I get visual hierarchy from.
Hierarchy of information is all about the order of importance of information. Whether you are making a poster, a flyer, a business card, or any printed material, you will have certain information that needs to be included. Some information will be more important than other information. So for example, if you're advertising a band gig, then you wouldn't make the date and entry fee the largest piece of text. You would give the name of the band the most space, as it is the identifying title that people will recognize. This exercise will look at how informative text can be effectively set out on a poster. The purpose of a poster is to convey information. This can be done either using text, imagery, or most commonly a combination of the two. Whether a poster is intended to advertise an art exhibition or to address a political topic, it must always communicate the message in a direct and eye-catching manner in order to be a successful design. When working with text, you first need to start with all of the information that will be included. Then you can begin breaking down the text into an arrangement that catches the eye, but also offers up all of the information in a clear, simple way. In this example, you can see which information works where. So the title is obviously the first part, and the information of when, where, and how is further down the hierarchy. Look at these examples. Think about how the text has been arranged so that the main title is clear and eye-catching, but the other information has also been included and arranged in a way that works with the overall visual design. If you have a look in your notes, you'll see an analysis of which design techniques have been used to organize the text in order of importance. The brief for this exercise is to design an A3 poster for an exhibition you are planning or one that you dream of having. This exercise can be completed using collage, drawing, and painting techniques, but if you wish to, you may use a computer and graphic design software. For this exercise, you will need a sheet of A3 paper, various art supplies, use whatever you feel comfortable with, reference images. This may include photocopies, magazine articles, and prints. Begin by brainstorming your dream exhibition. What work will you exhibit? Where will you exhibit it? Maybe it's a crazy project you dream of doing where you fill office blocks with foam. Let your imagination go. What visual elements do you want to include? Will it be an image of your artwork? Remember that people like to have a taste for what they are coming to see. What information is important to include? Here are some obvious ones. What is the title of your exhibition? You'll need your name on the poster. Where is the exhibition? When is the exhibition? Don't forget opening times and opening night. Is there an entry fee? Do you have any sponsors? Now that you have this information, you need to list it in order of importance. Hierarchy. The most important piece of information might be your name, or it might be the title of the exhibition. It's up to you to have a play with what details are most important. Think about what will grab attention and what details can be used more subtly. Laying the text out with an image. Think about how the image and the text work together compositionally. Sometimes an image looks great, but doesn't go well with text. You may also think about using a close-up or a section of an artwork. You could also use several images. Finalizing your text. What fonts and colors are most appropriate? Consider the difference between titles and detailed information. Some fonts work well large, but are too difficult to read when shrunk down small. It will also be useful to have a look at other people's poster designs and think about how you can incorporate some of their ideas into your own work.
Hi, I'm Vicky. I'm a student at TRC, and I did this poster here for a performance I did in the weekend. I've begun making this picture quite a while ago. I wanted the image to be quite centered because it was quite a symmetrical image. Just keep the wording centered and then have the wording here to keep it like on two sides. One problem that I came across was that this sunflower was coming quite close to the text. So I quickly just made it shorter. So I just created this space for the writing so nothing interfered with it. Hi, my name is Kate Logan and I've made a poster here for a fashion show called the Stray Cat Strut. When I set out making this poster, I tried out a few different ideas. The main thing that I wanted to include in it was the border because that made it tie in with the Opportunity for Animals Op Shop logo. I wanted to do some animals in it because it's raising money for stray cats, so it was appropriate to have cats in there. I went on the internet and I got some pictures of cats off the internet and then I just traced them basically and drew little outfits on them and then put them into the composition. So in terms of all the information I had to fit on this, the first thing I did was just break it all down into different stages of importance, keeping the title being the most important and then breaking it down from there. So just writing it down so that I could see it quite clearly before I embarked on doing my design made it a lot more simple. I decided that the name of the fashion show was the most important, the Stray Cat Strut. Then the fact that it is a fashion show, just in case anyone was wondering. Then the date and time, so that they knew where and when to go, and the address was the next important bit. What was going to be available at the event and where to get tickets from. And then on the bottom here, just that people can buy clothes on the night and a logo from one of the sponsors.
Awesome. So they went over a lot. Just so you know, you might have heard the word brief, which I realized I'm like, oh, this is the first time that we've talked about it. So a brief is like what you get from the client the very first time. So the brief is like the problem, like, hey, we need you to do a logo. Hey, we need you to do a poster. Hey, we need to do, sometimes they just come to you and they're like, we just need a graphic designer and we're not actually sure what kind of types of designs we need. We just know that we need some kind of marketing, you know. So the brief is just like the problem, you know, and sometimes they actually have corporate people who have everything prepared and they can give it to you. And sometimes you're working with a really small startup business and they're like, we just know we need someone and they don't know what the problem is. And then you have to figure it out. And then something else they mentioned was A3 paper. And so in Europe, they actually have like A paper, B paper, you know, like different, and then there's like A1, A2, A3. And here in the States, we call it letter size or tabloid size or just 8.5 by 11. And so we're really weird. We just don't have the same, like they decided to like come up with some kind of convention over in Europe and we just never got on the same page. So I just wanted to mention that. All right, so let's talk about, I wanted to show you guys some examples of bad hierarchy. And these all have really bad eye patterns, so I'm not going to spend too much time on them, but it's just like, wait, what am I reading left to right? I want to, but I can't. You're like, I can't do this. And you're like, welcome, wait, no, because there's no space, there's no proximity. We don't know what we're reading. Or if you were a car accident, what would I do now? I don't even know. All right, non-action and what? Again, people want to read left to right. What? I don't even know. What does it mean to wait? What? I don't know. I can't even if you give chances. So yeah, you just see people try men because women to the right, left always right. Life fast. If you don't, I don't even know what it says. Uh, yeah. And you just see it everywhere that people, even like professionally designed, donate to help end children. Right? Like that's not what they meant. It's not okay to be okay. It's okay to be okay. Oh man, this is tattoo. This is on him for life. Never the trust living. Don't worry about it. Be okay. Again, you need space. You need proximity. Oh my gosh, it's so bad. You don't matter, worry. Oh man. So I could continue to go on with all these. They're just so bad, and we just see it everywhere. We don't over. Okay, and I wanted to show you even more bad examples. And so this is like imbalances, you know. I showed you could use color, you could use size, you could use blah blah blah. And this is when it's like almost like too much. Like there's too much bright color, so then I'm not really sure what's, you know, a lot of stuff are the same size here except for maybe this. It's just like I don't even know what to like look at because it's to point this out, it's relative, right? Like once I make something bigger, then you have to decide what's the second most important thing. And then you have to make sure that it's not competing with each other and stuff like that. Another example, you're like, whoa, right? Like bright color, but another bright color, but then some more bright color, but it's not as big. And there's just so many typefaces going on, and there's just so many bright objects. I don't even know where to look. And oh my gosh, right? Like, and I see this a lot. I see this in, you know, some people who they just think, oh, I'll just make everything bright and I'll use all these different fun fonts, and you can't even read it. And it just looks really, really bad. I actually put Amazon here because I think Amazon's really poorly laid out. Like even when I'm like trying to look at past orders, I'm like, this is such bad graphic design, and I hate using Amazon's website. So again, like bright colors everywhere. They didn't even like spell things correctly. Yeah, it's just so bad. Oh, squish fonts, colors everywhere. Again, I'm not really sure what to look at. What, you know, some of these words aren't even necessary. Like then you actually have to edit what you're actually going to put in there. Bright colors everywhere. Oh my gosh, it just looks like puke. Too much bright color. I'm not sure, you know, no contrast. I can't tell. I can't even read it. It's hard to read. You know, so this is all bad design. Okay, so it's something we should avoid. So I think I'm going to have another just presentation about showing more bad, but then like, you know, I found somewhere it was like bad and then a designer made it good, and then like how they made it good and how they organized it and stuff like that. And also I wanted to talk to you one day about, we'll talk about how to create hierarchy just with text. You know, you have all these options. You can use, you know, small, thin font versus thick font, you know, scale, but styles, and how do you create just hierarchy through that. So, keep these things in mind when you're designing your type poster, right? Like you have that information, and then you have to decide how big should this, you know, the name of the typeface be? How big should the paragraph about the font be? How big should the characters be? And then making it this pleasing design at the end. Okay, so after this, you guys are going to dive right into the Canva video that shows you how to get started on your type poster, and then I'll see you guys next week.